pleasure of welcoming everyone to today's edition of Frontier. Opening bell is a Thursday, the 28th of October. Welcome Ali Sega, who is a managing partner at Sega and Associates out of Dubai. Then from London is Agnes, who is also a managing partner at GBS Africa. Thank you both for coming through this morning. I'm going to take you through the African markets very quickly before we launch into some of the headlines across the Pan-African space. The Nigerian market softened by 0.06% on Wednesday, the first softening on the market since last week after a 6-day rally. The BRVM climbed by 15 basis points on Wednesday. The Egyptian market, we saw about $90 million in total turnover for the biggest markets north of the continent, nearly 1% to the upside. In Nairobi, 0.03% yesterday, while the GSE fell by 21 basis points in line with the rest of the emerging markets. The currency also softened on Wednesday because the dollar made a bit of a comeback. Let's go to the top stories for East Africa, which Agnes will take a few bites at some of the headlines with the Africa's GDP, according to President Kenyatta, may fall 30% by the year 2050 on the back of the climate change crisis. That's the big story. Tomorrow is the start of the weekend is the start of the COP26 UN climate change summit in Glasgow. The Nairobi Securities Exchange is rolling out a program to start day trading. That will be on November the 22nd. And the Central Bank of Kenya has revoked license of a Mobile Pay Limited as a payment service provider. Rwanda is going to get the facility of BioNTech to produce the virus vaccine. That's the construction of the new facility, multi-million-dollar facility, will start middle of next year. And Rwanda says it's inked a trade and a partnership, an investment deal with Mozambique, southern part of the continent. Agnes, let me start with you on the Kenyan side. The statement is credited to the President Kenyatta as far as Africa's GDP is concerned and the climate change.
Thank you, Boason. It's great to be back. Yes, according to President Kenyatta speaking at a climate change conference yesterday, he reckons that Africa's GDP will fall by 30%. That is quite an alarming figure, given the fact that, the continent is already struggling with recovery strategies post-COVID-19. But this is an indication of how seriously we have to take climate change, the impact of climate change, particularly on developing countries who contribute very little to carbon emission yet. They suffer the most consequences from this. It's a pity that as we look towards industrializing, when we look towards making our economies better, investing in projects like infrastructure or fossil fuel, how can we achieve that? And how can we have a balance of developing but ensuring that we are conserving our environment? I think that's one of the hardest challenges for African leaders who will come to COP26 beginning of next week. We're being asked to cut carbon emission. We're being asked to stop investing in fossil fuels. But how can we when the rest of the world has already invested so much? They've already electrified their countries. We're being told you can't do it because it contributes to carbon emission. Well, I guess for the African nations will be attending COP26, one of the most important things is for them to speak in one voice, for them to call for support, particularly in helping countries adapt to the climate change crisis. But the figures, 30% GDP. Imagine the millions of people who will be affected. Imagine the impact on poverty. So we take one step, but we take 1,000 steps back. So certainly alarming news, but everybody has to contribute. And I think Africa's political class will be saying, look, we have contributed very little to carbon emission, but we also need support in mitigating the risks of climate crisis. So alarming message from Kenyatta there yesterday. The story on Rwanda and Mozambique trade investment deal. Remember, this is quite strategic for President Kagame. His army is already in Mozambique, helping stabilize the crisis in the north. But out of that, he sees, apart from securing political stability, he sees an opportunity for Rwanda and Mozambique to work together. Both countries have great potential, and I think this is quite a positive note from Rwanda and Mozambique. An interesting story from Rwanda, again, on biotech, vaccine construction. Boason, I wonder how this will happen. Well, the developed economies are already trying to protect the patent of vaccine production. I'm not sure how Rwanda is going to do this. I'm hoping that they can waiver the patent on COVID-19, but it's going to be hopeful.
Yes, perhaps BioNTech is going to bring the patent and just build the facility there in Rwanda or in Kigali, or ostensibly, and just run it out of there. But I think it's good news. I think maybe the big tech companies, the science and tech companies, are beginning to see Africa as a place to be. But let me ask Ali Sega very quickly, what are you hearing on the ground as far as the climate change is concerned? What should be the conversation for North Africa, for the rest, for the continent? Ali?
Yes, so for North Africa, it's a little bit different, for the we can say for the COP. Most of them, we can say Algeria, Libya, and Egypt are oil and gas producers. So I think this is not one of their goals, we can say, to reduce the carbon footprint. You have some effort done, on the solar energy and all these, but it's just effort only. But it's not, we can say, the main priority for these countries. So I think they will come, they will promise some stuff and all this, but I'm not sure that they will implement, we can say, the recommendation or even the directive of the COP26 this year.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting summit, by the way, for 12 days. I'm sure it's going to be a whole lot of front and back, brickbats in trying to get a new agreement signed on. But let's keep an eye on that. We're going to keep track of that here on Frontier Opening Bell. Let's move on to the West Africa, where Nigeria's raised a new e-currency, which we call the eNaira now. The fraudsters are already posting fraudulent Twitter handles asking Nigerians to be part of a fraudulent scheme that the central bank want everyone late Wednesday. In terms of the pension funds, close to 20 billion naira unremitted pension monies have been recovered from about 20 companies, according to the regulator. Then you got the AfDB looking at $75 million loan to Ghana, and that is in support of the country's infrastructure investment fund. Societe Generale, also listed on the West African coast market, posted a third quarter profit north of 51%. That's 142 million Ghanaian cedis. That's roughly $23 million US, by the way. Let's just take on the Southern African market with the stories around the market. Again, the Old Mutual, which is one of the oldest insurance and financial services provider, has gotten the green light to unbundle the net bank stake. And a new climate change, we keep talking about climate change, aren't we? There's a new climate index, which 91, which is a fund manager in South Africa, has floated. It covers 115 countries, 85 of them emerging markets. The idea is to track the climate issues across those 115 countries and put it on a market scale. Zimbabwean Stock Exchange names 6 companies for depository onboarding. That will be effective from November the 1st. The EU is talking with Angola for a 7-year fresh funding, while Celsey, which is a telco in South Africa, reported January to June earnings. EBITDA, 736.1 million rand. Profit after tax, or profit before tax, was 148 million rand, while its operating expenses fell 25%. Good news for this telco operator on the South African market. Agnes, let me ask you a little bit about the story around the EU in talks with Angola. Angola is South Africa's second largest oil producer behind Nigeria, but it looks like there's never enough money, even oil prices at highly elevated level.
Angola has struggled with oil production, as you know, and also suffered really brunt of COVID-19 impact. The economy has struggled with elections scheduled for next year. I think also political instability in the country is something to look out to. But it's interesting to see the European Union having conversation to fund the country to support its recovery program. Look, the Angolan president addressed the FT Africa Summit last week. He's convinced that the country is on a recovery path. He has promised to diversify Angola's economy, not to be reliant on oil like Nigeria. But I guess it's a positive. I guess a positive way to see this conversation going on to support the country, because they certainly need support, particularly as they look to diversify their economy.
Thank you, Agnes. Let's take Ali Sega straight to the North African space and the Sahel region, where political instability and geopolitical tensions are revving up. Between Algeria and Morocco, Algeria says it's going to stop supplying gas to Morocco effective November. The first, Egypt has its fingers in the political crisis in Sudan. This morning, Sudan just announced the suspension of ambassadors of the United States and EU to the country by the new military authority there. Is looking a whole lot messy over there. But on the business front, the ENI, which is the Italian energy giant, says they found 3 new oil and gas discoveries in the Egypt's western Sahara of the desert. EFG Hermes is looking to float 1 billion Egyptian pounds corporate bonds in 2022. EFG Hermes is one of the biggest financial services provider in Egypt and the north of the continent. Ali, weigh in on the political side for us. Are you getting seriously concerned here?
Yes, you have really, we can say, concern, because North Africa is going through, we can say, a lot of changes recently. You talk about, we can say, the dispute between Algeria and Morocco. It will have big effect on both countries, you know, because Morocco is importing gas from Algeria through this, we can say, through this gas, through this pipeline, and it will have some impact on Morocco, we can say, on the short term. Perhaps not on the long term, but on the short term, it will have significant impact, you know, because I think in the coming days, Algeria will cut the gas from Algeria to Morocco, and even the transit, we can say, the transit fees that Morocco used to get, they will not get it anymore. So it will have a big impact. So we don't know what impact it will have in terms of social or political impact on both Algeria and Morocco, because it will mean for Morocco, we can say, a cost of energy going up. So, and it will impact the people. So this is the first thing for, we can say, North Africa, between Algeria and Morocco. After on Egypt, it's a good news that the ENI announced the 3 new oil and mostly gas discoveries in Egypt. Egypt is becoming, we can say, a big gas and oil exporter. So we have discussion between Egypt, Jordan, and Syria to have a pipeline linking to, we can say, from Egypt through Jordan, and to, we can say, to have gas and Egyptian gas and Egyptian oil to Syria. So this is, we can say, one game changer. This is Egypt becoming a gas and oil exporter. After, for Central Bank of Tunisia, so they urges the cooperation between Tunisian and Libyan central banks. Tunisia is going through, we can say, big and significant challenges for funding. So they approach IMF. It's a little bit long to get we can say, the necessary loans from IMF. So Tunisia has approached also United Arab Emirates and Saudi to get some loans and to be sure that they can pay at least the government employees. So to see this move from Central Bank of Tunisia going to Central Bank of Libya, to have some partnership, because Libya is, we can say, is a country that have, we can say, significant money from oil. So to see this, we can say, cooperation between these 2 central banks, especially on digitalization, it can be, we can say, a safe, we can say, a saver from, we can say, for the Tunisian economy. So it's quite interesting to see that. Also to have, we can say, the Tunisia and Libya, we can say, cooperation will be linked to the election. Yes, to the election at the end of the year for Libya. So Libya will go through election at the end of the year. So all this cooperation will depend, we can say, on the election going up in Libya in December.
Thank you so much, Ali. Agnes, the problem in Sudan had many years of problem with the southern neighbor, the South Sudan. There was a breakaway. Al-Bashir went out of office. There was a transition government. Now that has also been toppled. What's your take? You're at GBS, I'm sure you covered government, African issues and policy issues as well out of London.
I think one of the saddest things is to see the influence of the Egyptian and the Gulf countries in this crisis. Sudan was doing so well. Remember, Ali, in August, they got some relief from most of its creditors.
Yes,
10 billion.
Including the AfDB. Yes,
absolutely. So they've done
the World Bank, the IMF. Yes.
Under the leadership of the transition government, they had come back to the international realm, working closely with institutions like IMF and AfDB. It's such a shame to see this country in a crisis, and also created by external factors. Sudan is a strategic strategic country in that part of in the Horn of Africa. There's the crisis in Ethiopia. Most of refugees in Ethiopia are fleeing into Sudan. The Nile Dam crisis also plays a part in this. Perhaps that's why Egypt is involved. But it's absolutely pity for this country. I had so much hope for Sudan under the leadership of Hamdok and the transition government. Look, military coups are becoming a thing in the region. We've had already 4 coups in the continent. The democratic processes are becoming weaker and weaker. And why is this? It's because the democratically elected governments have failed. But that's not the case with Sudan. My only concern is the interference from the external forces, Egypt and the Gulf countries, and that has to stop. We wait and see what the African Union will do. They would probably just make statement sanctions, but it's up to. I am hopeful that the people of Sudan who managed to get rid of Omar Bashir in 2019 will bring this country back to where it belongs.
Oh, thank you so much for your thoughts this morning, Agnes Gitao at GBS Africa, and Ali Sega, managing partner at Sega & Associates out of the UAE. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of the program. That's your Frontier Opening Bell for this Thursday, the 28th of October. I'll see you next time. Bye for now, everyone.